Good morning, everyone. We welcome you to the India Toy Fair 2021 and to this panel discussion on how toys and play based pedagogy go hand in hand with education. This session is jointly organized by FICCI and Department of School Education and Literacy, Government of India. We are pleased to be joined by Mr. R. Ramanan, Mission Director and Additional Secretary, Atal Innovation Mission, Niti Ayog, who will chair this session. We are also joined by Dr. Sridhar Srivastava, Director in Charge and Joint Director in CERT. He will be moderating the session. We are privileged to have an esteemed panel for this session today. Ms. Lagbir Kaur, Director, Trade and Market Development, Lego Education. Ms. Tamara Grindrod, General Manager, North Asia, Hasbro. Dr. Anju Shahzad, Founder, Mahatma Gandhi International School. Ms. Karen Wong, Executive Director, Case Kids. And Dr. Pawan Sudhi, Professor and Head, Department of Education in Arts and Aesthetics, NCERT. Mr. Harshad Shah, in charge, Vice Chancellor, Children's University, Gujarat. I would now hand over the session to Dr. Srivastava for taking it forward. Over to you, sir.
A very good afternoon to all of you who are present here. As Shreya just mentioned, I represent National Council of Educational Research and Training, an organization which is mandated with advising and assisting central as well as state governments in all matters of school education. So today I've been given the responsibility of moderating this panel discussion on how toys and play-based pedagogy go hand in hand with education. And I would try make all my best effort to do justice with my role. And you all know that toy-based pedagogy, in fact, is there, and we can say that it is primarily at the early age of learning. And even if we recall that we all can remember over the earlier times when we were also part and parcel of toy-based learning in the manner that was best available to us. And the National Education Policy 2020 mentions about playway method of learning, and along with that, with the pedagogical reforms that is posited in the National Education Policy 2020, a lot of discussion is there about the knowledge of India and the cultural foundations and cultural practices of India. And you all will agree that when we talk about the cultural practices of India, there has been a very diverse world of toys that has been a part and parcel of Indian system. And there are many methods of low cost or no cost learning also. But all this have got an impetus after a very prominent mention by our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji. And you all know that the India Toy Fair 2021 is a very, very massive event that we all are geared up for that. And this panel discussion today also is towards that endeavor and efforts also. So today we are joined here with we are the panel. I would just like to introduce you all to our panel. Sri R. Ramanan, who is the Mission Director and Additional Secretary, Niti Ayog. Sir would be in chair, and Sir would be chairing the session. And the other panelist we have Ms. Lagbir Kaur. She is head of Trade and Market Development, Lego Group. Ms. Tamara Grindrod, General Manager, North Asia, Hasbro Inc. We are joined here with Dr. Anju Sajo. She is the founder of Mahatma Gandhi International Schools at Ahmedabad, a school well known for its innovation and child-centered pedagogy. We are joined here with Ms. Karen Wong, Executive Director, Case Kids.
We are also joined here by Mr. Harshad Shah, in charge Vice Chancellor of Children's University, Gujarat.
And Dr. Pawan Sudhi. She heads the Department of Education with Art and Aesthetic here in NCERT. And she is playing a very vital role from the NCERT side in this India Toy Fair 2021. So first of all, I would request Shri R. Ramanan ji to kindly give her introductory remark as chairperson of this session. Sir, please, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Srivastav, for that introduction, a very comprehensive introduction into a topic which I think is increasingly becoming important, and it is being realized as important in the growth of every child, not only during their formative stages, but even later on as a student. The importance of toy games in being able to create the holistic development of every human being, and to be able to stimulate creativity and innovation in them as a continuous process rather than as a one-time event. All of us have realized, even when we were very young and when we were children, after all, when a child is born, the entire world is a toy for the child. And the entire set of events that are happening in a child's life is that like a game. The child views the entire world with curiosity. And as even our stories say, Hanuman looked upon the sun as a toy and he leapt towards the sun, wanting to play with the sun. And so this concept of play, which is so very important, and the concept of toys, which is very important because it does essentially the few things. First thing, it leads you into a journey of exploration. And a journey of exploration is very important in every person's life if you want to keep understanding what life is all about and how do we deal with the increasing complexities of life and solve them. The second is it leads to discovery. Because exploration leads to discovery, and this discovery stimulates a very important element in every human being's life, not only in a human being, if you see any living being for that matter. That discovery leads to curiosity, and curiosity leads to acquisition of knowledge and skills. Not just we are talking about physical skills, physical dexterity is automatically a part of it. When a child learns to walk, it is actually trying to play a game of trying to stand, seeing the others standing and then saying, okay, can I stand? And then it falls down, it stands again, it falls down again. But every time it discovers, it explores its own body, it innovates, the child innovates, and then learns how to stand, to walk, to run, and so on. The same thing is with speaking. This is why when in the first few years of a child, the amount of information that it is able to gain without the limitations of, the limitations that we introduce into ourselves through strict methodologies and very well-defined lines of education and so on, we somewhere lose the element of play and game and toys that should be stimulating us into a world of creativity and innovation. And therefore, I think, and the scientific research on this has been tremendous. Scientific research has revealed that whenever you approach anything in a spirit of fun, in a spirit of play, the amount of learning that you have and the amount of creativity that you are able to instill in yourself and the outcomes of that in terms of productive research or outcomes is several times a multiple of just a standard way of educating. And that is why the Honorable Prime Minister's call towards once again looking upon toys and games as an integral part of education, and which is getting reflected in the new education policy, where the curriculum now involves how do you learn with fun, how do you learn to make toys, how do you play with them, and how do you discover and how do you visit toy factories. These are all becoming part of the curriculum because it is being realized that this exploration leading on to discovery, leading on to curiosity, leading on to acquisition of knowledge and required skills, whether it is physical, mental, cognitive, emotional skills, and then leading on to creativity and innovation, this is all linked together. Even the great Albert Einstein, he said that, combinatorial play is what results in highly productive output of the human being. And so it is play and games which has been scientifically established as very necessary for addressing many, many issues that we commonly face in life. Children who are, not having the opportunity, they are autistic children or disadvantaged children, when you allow them to play a game and you introduce toys, the amount of creativity that comes and their ability to overcome the disadvantage that they experience and showcase to the world what they can do becomes very evident. So I think this is a fantastic topic for all of us and experts who are on this panel to deliberate on. I also want to say how the government, not only at the foundational level, but also at a school level, Atal Innovation Mission, of which I am part of, we have launched what are known as Atal Tinkering Labs. Now, these tinkering labs are between grade 6 to grade 12. And why did we introduce them? Because the world is changing with technology dominating the world. You know, you have new, affordable, accessible, available, and advanced technologies like 3D printing, robotics, IoT, sensor technologies, miniaturized electronics, all of them becoming manifest in the world, upon which the solutions of tomorrow are being built. Now, if you want our children to become problem solvers and innovators and the job creators of tomorrow, you have to be able to instill in them the ability to look at problems around the world and see how they can become the problem solvers and how you can instill in them an innovative mindset. And therefore, we are setting up thousands of tinkering labs across the country in schools. And the word tinkering is very important. There, the student is playing with all these do-it-yourself kits on the latest of technologies. And these are technologies now being produced by companies like Lego or Mattel and so on. They are do-it-yourself kits. You see, when you give a Lego kit in those days, the child will start creating towers and building blocks and so on and so forth. Similarly, today, technology is enabling the young child not only to become physically dexterous with a whole lot of material that is made available to it, including mechanical or electronic equipment, which is becoming an integral part of our lives, but also to be able to create solutions using them in an atmosphere of fun. So in these tinkering labs, the student is not being judged by the marks they're getting in an exam. They are in fact being judged by how they can work together in teams and create some solutions for problems they see. Now, what happens in the process? In the process, first, they enjoy this entire initiative. You know, they're not burdened with the thought that I have to get marks for this. Second, it creates 21st century skills like teamwork, collaboration, discussion, playing and laughing about their failures rather than, you know, getting depressed by their failures. When they see something is not working, you see laughter in the tinkering lab room because the children are just enjoying the process of learning, failing, and redoing it and creating something new. So we have now established more than 7,000 tinkering labs in the country for grade 6 to grade 12. And I have to tell you, my experience as a mission director of Atal Innovation Mission has been amazing to see the creativity and the innovation that is being unleashed in the young kids between grade 6 to grade 12, where they are creating solutions, complex solutions like a solar panel IoT-based irrigation management system or a robotics-based waste management system. And we used to think that we can do only these solutions when we go into professional work or when we create a startup and so on. So I do think toys and games should become an integral part of the pedagogy of education so that we convert from a rote learning mindset to a problem solving innovative mindset. And finally, I want to end with the fact that this is a huge industry opportunity for India. You know, the industry itself is a $36 billion industry across the world by 2025. We are talking about 1.3 billion people in our country, with 65% of our country under 35 years old. And therefore, we are one of the youngest nations of the world. And we are going to be like that for the next 15, 20 years. So that means a lot of children who have the opportunity to become highly creative by boosting the toys and games factories and the play environment in schools, and thereby stimulate a very high degree of learning and innovation and the potential for being the change makers of the world. Change always comes when you're discovering something new, and it always comes in an atmosphere of fun, not under an atmosphere of pressure. The most creative people are the people who are the most relaxed because they are not being judged by anybody else. So I think this is a great opportunity for Indian toy industry, which is just 1% of the rest of the world, to be able to, I mean, we have such a rich tradition of stories, of games, of traditional games, whether it is a Pallanguli or various other games that Indian games have been known for. There is a great opportunity for the toy industry and industry clusters, whether it is in Tanjavur or it is in Andhra Pradesh or it is in Karnataka, toy clusters to be created. And that can, even if we double our industry, that's going to be a $2 billion, $3 billion industry for India alone. And India as a market is going to be a huge market for the rest of the world. So with this, I want the others to share their views, but I think this is a very exciting topic. And I thank you so much for giving me a chance to share a few thoughts on this occasion.
So, many thanks, sir, for setting the tone in such a nice manner. As you mentioned, that when a child is born, he or she looks towards the world as a toys, and to quench her thirst for curiosity and exploration, the child looks towards the toys, and that's a very good medium. Also, we all know. And you very well mentioned about the other Tinkly lab also, and certain speakers where the child are unleashing their creativity. So very interesting facts and very encouraging motivation for all of us to be a part of this great endeavor. So with your permission, sir, I would be just placing questions to the panelists. So first of all, my question to Ms. Lakbir Kaur. She's head trade and market development Lego Group. So, madam, how do toys and games help in stimulating the creativity, innovation, and capabilities of our children? I just want to have your experience as as an entity who is interacting or getting the feedback from across the children. Please,
Thank you
Lagbir
so
Kaur.
much. Thank you so much for the question. And firstly, I'd like to say what a privilege it is to be part of a panel, this panel this afternoon, and to engage with such passionate and forward-thinking people. And I think, Dr. Ramanan, you have just epitomised kind of the passion and forward thinking that we're seeing from India. And I think the work that you are doing with the Apple sort of innovation mission is inspiring, and it will step change this whole sort of concept of learning through play and how well that is embraced and adopted in India. And it's wonderful to see that. You have certainly inspired me with your passion and motivation this morning. Um, so I do work for Lego Education, and I think that that is important because this is the part of the Lego group that works with ministries of education and schools across the globe. Um, and we work with them to really help them understand how to embrace the benefits of learning through play. So the learning through play pedagogy is at the heart of what we do. We want children to be equipped with lifelong skills, such as confidence, such as creativity, and emotional and mental resilience, so that they can really thrive in the 21st century. And we see proven results from anecdotal feedback that we get from MOEs, from teachers, and from children across the world that shows us this really works. As you've spoken about, Mr. Ramanan, this is proven, and we see it's proven because it creates a joyous occasion for children, and it helps them to really experiment. It helps them to learn from their failures. It helps them to collaborate and really get very engaged with subjects through hands-on learning solutions. Now, what we do at Lego Education is we take a holistic view to children's development, because we know children's development and learning is complex, and it's not black and white. So we have to understand their physical, social, cognitive, creative, and emotional skills, and understand how these complement and also interact with one another. And I think, Dr. Anju, that's very similarly aligned to the sort of philosophy that your school is based on, which is really, really lovely to see. So I'm excited to hear more about that. And Mr. Ramanan, you spoke about there's a lot of science about learning through play. We know that it works. And what it does do is it demonstrates the connection between play and skill acquisition. And this doesn't only help children to achieve better learning outcomes because it improves their confidence, engagement, and adoption of subjects that are sometimes typically seen as quite difficult, particularly the STEM subjects, so science, technology, engineering, and maths. This is where we see specific, well thought through physical and digital solutions being used in the classroom in a very dynamic and discovery based way work incredibly well. But it also helps to develop those other skills. So we call those lifelong skills, the confidence, collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving, etc. And also emotional and mental resilience. And we know that those latter skills are extremely important now more than ever. We've seen from COVID that building up children's resilience is pivotal to help them understand how to really navigate times of uncertainty, which they will have to deal with in the future, as well as having to deal with them now. And these sort of 21st century skills, we talk about those being needed for the future job market because job categories will change. These skills are actually required just as much now as they are in the future. And there's a real acceleration we're seeing from ministries of education like yourselves to really accelerate this learning through play pedagogy and really make sure it's inbuilt and fully integrated into the mainstream curriculums of public schools. So I'd just like to talk about play characteristics because you touched upon most of them, Mr. Ramanan, and I just want to make sure that we're kind of clear about what we in Lego Education sort of class as the characteristics that define learning through play. And we say that learning through play is really founded on 5 key things. So joy. So you talked about joy. This is about children being motivated by something that they are specifically interested in. You do it because it's fun and you want to engage in it. And I think all of us on this panel, when we're doing things that we enjoy, we'll always remember them and we'll always remember, more importantly, the learning from them. They have to be meaningful. And meaningful is about something being familiar to children and it's relevant, it's in their context. So when these learning through play solutions, hands-on solutions, are made part of the mainstream curriculum, it is relevant because it's based on the curriculum that a child has got to learn anyway. So it's very, very integral to their learning journey. They have to be actively engaged. So we tend to, as human beings, always refer to situations where we've been actively engaged in something. We'll remember this panel discussion because we're all sharing our thoughts and opinions. And this is also usually associated with being physically active. So if you can create an environment like in the tinkering labs where children are moving around, they're collaborating and they're really sort of immersed into what they're doing, that is a very good way of ensuring that they're going to be engaged and they're going to improve their learning outcomes. It has to be iterative. You talked about the fear of failure. Now, we know in the future, children have got to know how to deal with failure. We're never going to get everything right all the time. They have to deal with uncertainty. And that is all about an iterative process. So, creating situations where children can discover, they can experiment, they can learn through doing, and they don't fear failure is extremely important. And it has to be socially interactive. So getting people together to collaborate and communicate, those two skills, collaboration and communication, are going to be critical in the future for the jobs that will be created. And creating that playful environment, as much as it is fun, it's creating very, very important lifelong skills that are going to support 21st century sort of jobs, and the future sort of talent pipeline of India and other countries is really important. And I think those 5 characteristics you see in things like the First Lego League competitions or WRO or any other competitions that you might be running, because children feel inspired. Those aspects are always prevalent and they use and leverage those aspects, and they get very inspired and engaged and they create and they are curious, and it improves their overall holistic sort of lifelong skills that they're building. Now, where we see accelerated benefits, and I mentioned this previously, is where learning through play and learning through play solutions are made accessible, you know, on a mainstream level. So these are worked into national curriculums and they're built into the day-to-day experience that children have. If it's seen as an afterthought or it's an add-on to something that they're doing at school, you don't see as many benefits as markets where it is made part of the mandatory sort of curriculum. So that's just a sort of thought to sort of have in the back of your minds as well. And I think one of the things we are seeing is that these skills that we talk about, lifelong skills, these skills are going to be just as important as we move into a world of heavy sort of automation and AI. And researchers predict that we will see an even bigger change in job categories. And the types of criteria to fulfill those job categories will get even more stringent. And this will be in response to sort of technology advancements and also shifts we'll see from sort of AI itself. Now, we know from the World Economic Forum that creativity, critical thinking, innovation are all top skills. they're part of the top 5 skills required for 2025. So I think it's super important that, you know, countries like yourselves are already looking at how these fit into the curriculum and how you're looking to build them through learning through play solutions. And I think one of the things we have learned is to make this really work in any market, there are sort of 3 key things that I always think are important, and that is, do you have the infrastructure to really support children to adopt these solutions? And by infrastructure, it's basic infrastructure like the technology. A lot of these solutions are physical solutions, but they have digital components. So do children have access to iPads and broadband, etc.? Do teachers have the confidence and the skills to be able to use these types of solutions in the classroom and create meaningful discovery-based classroom sessions? We know from the Harris poll that we conducted, which was a global sort of research study, that teachers really didn't have the confidence and the competence. And there's a lot of work being done in the background to really drive the professional development of teachers. They are absolutely pivotal to making sure learning through play works within any market, any education system. And the third one always comes down to funding. And it feels like, you know, the ambition that President Modi has, Prime Minister Modi has set, demonstrates his commitment to really funding this and making sure that what is required to help all children have access to these types of solutions, to the learning through play pedagogy, is already in place, which is fantastic. But you also have to win the hearts and minds of students and teachers. So there's one thing sort of trying to roll out learning through play pedagogy. They have to really believe in it themselves, that this is going to work, and feel really, really inspired by it. So those are a couple of the sort of watch outs that we've certainly seen from working with other ministries of education. And it feels like from the national education policy that you're putting in place, a lot of that is already being thought through. And you talked, Mr. Ramanan, about you know, grades sort of 6 to 12 being the target for learning through play. I think what is really important, where we're seeing sort of acceleration in the adoption of this, is to make sure that there are solutions available through preschool right through to high school, so that every child is building the foundation very early on in those robotics and coding, science, technology, maths-based sort of subjects, and using hands-on learning for those subjects and building and evolving those as they move through their learning journey into higher education.
So,
Thank you for listening.
yeah. So, thanks. And I take the tagline from your words that toys teach children to learn from failure. And we all would appreciate that. It's very important skills we all need to learn in our life, and more so in the 21st century. So, moving to now, Ms. Tamara, we all say that community plays a very pertinent role in all the efforts, mainly for a country like India. So, I would like to know, Tamara, from you that what role do toys and games play in bringing communities and kids together so that we can together move towards realizing the purpose and goals of all these efforts. So, Ms. Tamara,
Hi,
yeah,
good
yes.
afternoon. Thank you so much for the question, and thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure to spend an afternoon with so many passionate and like-minded people. And for me, I've been in the toy industry for over a decade, but am finding a renewed inspiration after having twins last year. And definitely living and breathing exactly what Mr. Ramanan shared, which is daily exploration, falling down, getting up, learning to talk, learning to play, and learning through community. So this is an even more relevant panel for me now, and I'm really enjoying hearing everybody's perspective. So thank you. To echo Mr. Ramanan, actually, and with my start is, you know, growing up, our fondest memories are always around play. And that's play with friends, that's play with families, play with siblings, sometimes by ourselves, but it's really the exploring, the creating, the inventing that forms that basis of play. It's fun. It makes life enjoyable. It brings that joy that's already becoming a theme to this panel. The value and benefits of play transcend just educational benefits, although there are many of those, as we've discussed. But through play, kids can develop social skills, express emotions, gain confidence, learn their own capabilities, and learn how to interact with others, both from a STEM educational perspective as well as a creative expression perspective. And during the global pandemic, we've all been home and have had to rely on toy and games to bring some joy and connection into the very long and monotonous days. A big relief from spending time in front of screens every day, which I said I would not let my babies watch screens, but I've already caved. So luckily there's also a lot of great educational content out there to get them started. But with schools going online and so many teachers having to adapt to new teaching methods and being such amazing partners to parents, they've had to use toys and games in fun, turnkey, new kinds of ways with countless lessons and learning opportunities from home. I'm actually a daughter, sister, and sister-in-law to teachers in the States. And so I can very much appreciate how important it is to have creative solutions for lessons, ways for kids to interact, whether it's in person, virtually, or in a hybrid solution. So creating that community through the classroom every day through play is important as well. And a big step in creating the value of play during the pandemic has been the Hasbro launch of Bring Home the Fun. It's been a global initiative that we've looked at providing parents and caregivers and teachers resources to help keep kids occupied and engaged during all of this time at home and indoors, and giving them options for both digital as well as physical solutions so that we can limit that screen time, but being realistic that that's going to be part of the day and part of the learning. Whether it's Monopoly and learning math, squishing Play-Doh and getting that full tactical experience with colors, watching Peppa Pig and learning through her family's social experiences, or donating toys to those in need. Toys and games has really helped get us through the past year and will continue to be a treasured memory for kids as they grow up. The role of toys and games is now more elevated than ever and is a daily companion, I think, to parents and kids and teachers alike. Kids might not remember how they learned a critical thinking skill, but they'll remember the hours they spent with their siblings, with their friends, with their parents, imagining a Play-Doh creation, or competing to be the Monopoly banker, or really creating those memory moments together. As I mentioned, experienced a lot of this firsthand as a new mother over the last year, and I really had to lean into community to create a built-in family and socialization for the babies in lieu of organized classes and in lieu of them being able to be home with family. So I'm so grateful that they've been able to make lifelong friends within our apartment, pulling families together and creating our own community and our own family with a shared love of music, arts and crafts with Play-Doh, Lego, Mattel toys, plush, anything that we can kind of bring together to get the kids working and playing and communicating when they don't have that otherwise normal option that we would have in this new normal. So I think parents, myself included, have really realized this value of play in this new normal. And at the same time, community has taken on a whole new meaning in our lives over the last year. I think one of the unforeseen benefits of what has been a challenging year for everyone is that the world is really coming together and people want to help people. In 2020, as a company, Hasbro partnered with No Kid Hungry and other organizations globally to provide meals, learning resources, toys and games to those most impacted by the pandemic. And we donated more than 3 million toys and games to children throughout the year to inspire learning, creativity, and to play in low-income families. And actually, to go back to something that Mr. Ramanan said in the beginning, we've also, over the past few years, partnered with the Autism Project, a lifelong philanthropic partner of the Hasbro Children's Fund, to figure out how do we make play accessible to all children. And the Toy Box Tools actually is a program that was created to provide structural series of tools rooted in evidence-based and emerging best practices that help give families and caregivers and teachers the ability to unlock the power of play and make play more enjoyable at the child's own pace. So there's just so many examples of how we as a community and how I've been so lucky to work for a company that believes in this and inspires this. And finally, making the world a better place for children and their families, which is really what we as Hasbro try to embody. It's our mission. And it's, for me, what's kept me at the company so long and why I'm so happy to be sharing all of this with people who I know have, it sounds like, very similar values and beliefs, and want to bring that and expand that within the India market and see how we can further engage kids, further create a community, but do that with intrinsic learning and values that will end up benefiting all of our children for the long run. So with that privilege comes a responsibility to stand up and address key social and environmental issues, foster inclusion, and ultimately to ensure that as a company, we leave a positive legacy for future generations. So for me, it's about community as a company, community on a personal level, and community as a whole during this past year as a pandemic, and seeing how amazingly toy and game and play weaves a story throughout all of that. And there's so much consistency in how we act and what we see as benefits when we believe in the power of play. So thank you very much for the question and the time. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing everyone else's perspectives on this amazing topic.
So thank you, Tamra. You have very rightly mentioned that learning with persons around you gives you opportunity for transversal skills also, and that's a very important point that you have made. So I would move now to Dr. Anju Sajo. And you see, Dr. Anju, we are very jubilant for all these endeavors, and we are talking about all these things. But since you are experienced in really practicing the things in the Indian school system, or you have experience of interacting with parents and all other stakeholders, so what you would like to place forth as the major caveats in adopting toy-based pedagogy and play-based curriculum in schools and other educational institutions, based on your experience, basically in the Indian situation, please, Dr. Anju.
Thank you very much, Shri Srivastavaji, for inviting me, and thank you very much for all the sharing of the experiences today. Since you're talking about caveats, and caveats to me means more like challenges that we are facing and what are the things we really need to do. The first thing that, of course, I would insist upon is teacher training. And the fundamental of this is really that how do you conduct a teacher training? So in my experience, because I'm a teacher trainer myself, and I did my doctorate at King's College in London, and it was precisely on teacher training, and it was on joyful teacher training and experiential teacher training, including using toys and objects. So what I found in my research was that actually positive emotions played a very fundamental part in the experiential learning with teachers. Wherever we conducted these workshops across the country, teachers spoke really, and I remember this sentence when this teacher was so happy in a school in Chennai, in an Indian school, and she said, "Ma'am, you brought out the 5-year-old in me." And I thought that summed it up very well, because we as teachers all have been children, and probably we've been children where play was repressed as well. And every human being loves to play. And I think the teacher trainings have to encourage the teachers to go through the same processes of discovery, exploration, joy, and happiness. Because if they don't feel that joy in the training, they will not be able to transfer it to the children. So I think the first fundamental is that, and also because there has been a lot of conditioning. You see, we are all products of a very colonial type of education that has been a historical legacy. And in that system, let me say that it is coming either from the prison model or the factory model, coming from the Industrial Revolution and the Victorian principles. And very often play and leisure were not, they were things that were sanctioned in this, in the Industrial Revolution or in this Victorian framework. So to come back to a human society where play and discovery and joy are principles of learning and engagement are very important. So the teacher training has to be absolutely on the same principles. That means that the teachers actually do what they're actually going to be doing in the classroom. Now, the other point in teacher training would be to encourage teachers to understand that the curriculum can be covered through toy-based learning, but not only can it be covered, it's covered extremely well in a much more interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary manner, along with, of course, all the skills, etc. The conceptual learning is better. So to have part of the teacher training, the mapping, I think for me as a challenge, one of the main challenges is to get the teachers out of the mode of teaching. I keep joking that if you want to kill something, teach it. Because teaching is a didactic process, but learning is not. So to have a paradigm shift from teaching to learning, and when the teacher becomes a learner, that's a very important posture. The posture of the teacher must change. So from that discipline oriented, finger on your lips kind of a classroom to classrooms where children are experimenting, playing, tinkering, like you said, and the classrooms become like workshops. And that's what John Dewey, a father of experiential learning, also spoke about. And that's very much part of the Gandhiji's vision of Nai Talim, that children should be engaged in doing things hands-on. So mapping the curriculum as part of the teacher training, mapping the curriculum to see that the curriculum comes afterwards. First comes the meaningfulness, like Veer said, the joy, the purpose of the play itself. And if we have a good strategy to play, then I think the curriculum will fall into place naturally, because learning can be mapped very easily everywhere. So that is the first part about the what. And the how is, of course, that they should be engaged. The teachers themselves should be engaged. Now, to give you another example, joy in the teacher training is equally a universal concept. We did a training course for the Central Board of Secondary Education, which has gone on to their Diksha platform. And I worked around something as simple as paper planes, making just paper planes out of paper, because that's something we all did in the classroom. We used to make paper boats and paper planes and throw them at each other when the teacher wasn't looking. And actually, we mapped the learning around the paper plane, and you can go right up to Bernoulli's principle in physics in a higher class. And the whole point is this, that play-based learning is not only for young children. People seem to think that, when they're young, kindergarten and foundational years, it's all very well. But when you go into higher classes, then it all has to become very serious, and you have to do all these things in a very abstract manner and learn the definitions, etc. Actually, children equally benefit from that experience. Only the nature of that learning changes. Only the nature of discovery might change. There may be more reflective activities, etc. So I think that's a very important part. So deconditioning the teacher is a fundamental thing. The other point would be assessment. Now, if the assessment procedures do not change, then the classroom pedagogy will not change. And we do not want the toy-based and the play-based learning to become an extracurricular activity that, like arts, became over the years earlier. So I think the government is, of course, looking at shifting the nature of assessment is also in the process of being changed. So this will go hand in hand. And lastly, I think parental awareness is very important. When we started our school, and our school is now 22 years old, and this is not a private school, this is a school, it's a municipal school, which is run under the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation. And the idea was precisely to use a low-cost resource, which is the state, the municipal building, and to take it to an international level. So it is an international baccalaureate school where underprivileged children are given free education, but those who can afford, they pay. Now, the teacher training is an important part. We had to show that this was possible. So when we started, using play, parents would come to us and tell me that, ma'am, we ask our child, what did you learn today? And the child says, I played. And the next day, they ask the parent always says, what did you learn today? And the child will still say, I played, mama. And the third day, the same thing. And they're saying, ma'am, it has been 6 months. When are you going to start teaching something? And it was very interesting, because that's precisely the point. We aren't teaching anything. We're just creating opportunities for children to learn. To give you an example about with this India Toy Fair, we were asked to put up a booth for the India Toy Fair, and look at what the teachers came up with. So this was the kind of work that the teachers did. They made board games out of stories. So these are Indian stories, Panchantantra tales, and they used art forms, which are local art forms, Matani Pacheri and folk art. And using these wonderful stories, they created beautiful games which have psychomotor, skills, where you can have a beak. So this is a story of the thirsty crow. And the thirsty crow is a story which is again in Aesop's fable, etc. It's gone from Panchantantra. And you play the game, and you have to, with your beak, you have to pick up the pebbles and put it in the jar. And through the journey of going in search of the water, which is again a metaphorical journey, how beautiful it is. You have different cards, and again with the folk art, and the children are supposed to do different activities. Now, we first looked at the joy of mapping the story into a learning tool, and after that we sat and we said, all right, what are the competencies from the NCERT that we think we can cover during this game, while doing this game? And we were able to cover an amazing amount of things, from sequencing, storytelling, language, science concepts in water, etc. And this is, of course, for a younger age group, but for older age group, we ask the children to do their games. They make board games. Now, when children are making board games, they are learning a lot of strategies. They're thinking about rules and collaborative work. And this group came up with the thirsty crow that flies over landscapes, different landscapes, from geographical landscapes, snow and desert, and has to invest in some kind of energy there. So the crow has to decide whether he should invest in fossil fuels or solar panels or whatever. And so it's a bit like Monopoly, but the idea is to bring in energy system and learning. So this is linked with environmental sciences. So these are just examples that I'm providing you as ideas that ultimately, with the play-based pedagogy and the toy-based pedagogy, what my push would be, a thrust would be, teacher training, where teachers learn to make their own toys and games, so they go through the processes. But ultimately, the children should be making those toys and games in the classrooms. And then these toys should become part of toy labs and toy libraries. So when they go back home, they can actually play with this toy with their families, with the other siblings, so that in the evenings, we come back together, moving away from the television and individual screens, to have one common time where we all laugh and play together. So a lot of values come through that. This connection with the Indian storytelling and history and culture. And this is not only for Indian children. This would be equally for NRI children, but also for children of the world. Because when we share, we talk about intercultural awareness, then I think India is a great repository of marvelous storytelling traditions from across the country. So I think the caveat, to sum up and to conclude, would be a great thrust on a very, very massive teacher training, but experiential teacher training with small groups as well. So teachers go through that processes and they themselves discover the joy in learning.
Thank you, Dr. Anju. Thank you very much. And I could gather from your words that teacher training is very important, and that too with the positive mindset and emotions. I gather from your words that there is required a mindset from the parent side also about the play-based learning and toy-based learning. So now I move on to Dr. Pawan Sudhi, who is a professor and head of Department of Education in Art and Aesthetic, my colleague from NCRT, and she is leading the group here for all this endeavor. So Dr. Pawan Sudhir, you have joined by now, I guess. Yeah.
Yes,
Dr.
yes, sir.
Pawan?
Yes,
please.
sir. Good afternoon. I'm so lucky to join because at one point I thought maybe I will not be able to be part of the panel because the real technical glitch. But finally, the team helped me here to join. So thank you for calling me at the panel, sir. First of all, I must say that I'm glad that I'm part of the organizing team of the India Toy Fair 2021 because it's such a gala event which is making us learn like a child learns with the toys. So now coming to the toys, it's first time that toys are being seen more than an attractive object of fun and play. Earlier we were just thinking that toys are just toys is for the kids to play, but now it's being considered as a serious learning tool for the experiential learning and holistic development of our children. Well, there are a number of researches and practices which verify, and all my colleagues on the panel have reinforced while sharing their reviews and the practices that yes, this is high time that we should consider toys as pedagogy in the school education system. So coming straight away to the initiative that our government is taking, the process of initiative started by Ministry of Education. The first step was National Policy of Education 2020, which strongly recommends the play-based learning, joyful and experiential learning, and very clearly mentions at many points in many recommendations the use of toys, and especially indigenous toys. It also talks of art integrated learning, sports integrated learning as pedagogy. If we move further, I'll just pinpoint certain recommendation of NEP. Then there is a strong mention of 10 bagless days for children at all level. And we seriously see the urge of reducing the curricular load and give children more time and space to explore and experience their learning and go deeper into the concepts. NEP further recommends competency based learning, and it condemns rote learning. So all our panelists, especially Dr. Ranju, has spoken about this. And then the another point is no hard boundaries between the subjects and no extracurricular or co-curricular concept in the curriculum. This is a new initiative that we are going to take, which NEP strongly recommends that from now onward, arts, crafts, and toys, sports, health, this will not be considered as co-curricular or extracurricular areas. So that's a great beginning, which is opening ways to bring in pedagogy as such, the art integrated learning and the toy integrated learning. It also recommends indigenous knowledge and the promotion of Indian languages, arts, and culture to strengthen the fabric of cultural diversity. We all know that in India, when we talk of languages, there are 22 languages in which we work, and when we talk of art and culture, well, I must say is countless. So this is again a very strong point which can be strengthened and promoted with the help of toys in education. All these recommendations provide very strong basis to promote toy-based pedagogy. Now, coming to the actions that we at ministry level and NCERT level are taking to put the NEP recommendations in implementation mode. So, what we need to do? Of course, you have already said everything, but I'm just putting it in points for me to share the glimpses of what actually we are doing. So first of all, changing the mindset towards play-way methods, because so far it was not really being appreciated. It's only a fragmented approach which was happening, like Dr. Anju is doing such good work in her school, and similarly there are other schools where we see that some serious work is going on. But the overall mindset needs to be changed. There is a strong need of shift from in teachers to bring in the student-centric learning from the teacher-centric learning, because right now in our classroom you see it's always teacher-centric, and teacher speaks 80% of the time, and if at all we see something good in schools, then we consider that yes, if 20% time is given to children, even then those are good schools. But the new education policy is talking of vice versa, that there should be more time, like 80% time should be given to children to really think, feel, act, experience, and express, and not the traditional practice where they are just listening and teachers are talking. So this shift is required, and Department of School Education, to do this, to make it possible, has formed a working group of academicians on toy-based pedagogy, where a systematic plan is being prepared. We are already into the mapping of indigenous toys. So we call it a mapping of a toy pedagogy, where as per the stages suggested by NEP, that is foundational stage, preparatory stage, middle stage, and secondary stage. For all the stages, a mapping is happening, and where the existing indigenous toys, the new toys, modern toys, applications, and board games. All kind of exploration is happening, and the mapping is in the process. Rather, the foundational literacy and numeracy stage is all set for the training of teachers, as Dr. Anju has suggested that teacher education needs to be um, focused, and this capacity building, it seems, is the first one that should take place. The second initiative that ministry has taken is organization of toy kathan, where millions of students, teachers, parents from all over the country have participated in thinking of problem statements and ideas to create games and toys to enhance the higher order thinking skills. And this you can see in the toy fair, because the final outcome is displayed and shared with the general public in our India Toy Fair. The next step in the road ahead by the government is to come up with the national curriculum framework for school education, and all the exercises that are happening at the moment will contribute to bring in toys as content, subject content, and as pedagogy in the in a very clear strategic manner for its effective implementation at all the stages. Capacity building of our educators, teacher educators, educational administrators, even the community, whether it is immediate community as parents or is the overall community, to accept this pedagogy. As Dr. Anju rightly said, that many a times parents, the community, they think we are just playing, and when the teaching or learning will start. So we have to do the capacity building, and the process of capacity building has been initiated already. But when the curriculum framework gets ready, we will have the packages for all level, for teachers as well as for other stakeholders. Now, talking of examination reforms, NCERT and Ministry of Education, of course, we are working on school-based assessment. And in this assessment, continuous comprehensive evaluation is the way where we will be, where the toy-based pedagogy is going to play a great role. Because when children are playing, the process of evaluation is happening simultaneously. So unless we work on the examination reforms, the implementation of such pedagogies is not possible. So NCERT is simultaneously working on the reforms, the examination reform. Now, uh, well, uh, is when we talk of assessment, NEP says assessment at 360 degree angle. So where we are promoting assessment by the teacher, by the peers, and by the child herself. Plus, we are talking of cognitive domain, psychomotor domain, and affective domain simultaneously. So when we talk of 360 degree, we all know that it's not possible to assess children um, completely if we go on theoretical assessment. So it has to be task based, and the NCERT is working on that. Now, whatever I have spoken about, the initiatives and the work in progress for toy-based learning and for play-based learning in education, everything you will see happening in our stalls, which are exhibitors from Department of School Education side. I would request you all at the end that if we want to see it happening in India, it happening in all over the country, then we must visit all the stalls, because there are 80 plus stalls of Department of School Education, where our children, our teachers, teacher educators, and some freelance professionals, they have put in efforts to bring in all kind of toys and board games, even electronic games, to see this dream come true. So at the end, when I'm saying thanks to the organizers, I must appeal to all our teachers, students, and parents to please come and see our stalls where all these toys and games are seen in a virtual manner. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, thank you, Dr. Pawan. You have described well the initiative that we are taking at the institutional level, and that is dealing well with things or propositions there in the National Education Policy 2020. I would like to sum up here that it was a very nice discussion. In fact, we got the speakers from different domains and different experiences, and all together, if we want to fill that great space that we have for the toy-based pedagogy, or for that reason to talk about the great market for toys in this country and the world around, and also the cultural ethos or the cultural foundations which are associated with the toys. And as was mentioned by one of the speakers, that toy playing with nearby communities or friends or siblings gives opportunity for learning many transversal skills also, and we all agree to that. And from the NCERT side, as Dr. Pawan Sudhi mentioned, we are into the exercise where we are trying to map the available toys along with the competencies which we just think that these competencies are important, and these competencies should be acquired at that particular level. And NCERT also is making efforts towards low cost or no cost toy based pedagogy also, and we find many evidences from across the states and districts and blocks where the teaching learning process is taking place in that manner. And our one of the panelists, Dr. Anju, gave a very nice, you say, the challenges. In fact, if we meet these challenges, that we will be at the next level as regard to these efforts and endeavors. The question that I wanted to ask you, that what sort of approach is adopted to ensure that your products act as a developmental tool for the young masters? Ms. Karen, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I know that we are running out of time, and first, I'm really very much honored to be one of this group. But to make it short, just now we have heard a lot of good things about play, and I just want to share one of the slide that can summarize everything. And we also teach in some of the university on with the future teachers, on child development. And just now I echo very much Dr. Andrew's comment on parents and teachers' education. It's very important for play pedagogy to be exercised. So here, this is a picture I've taken when we are doing a play testing, and you can see what these kids are learning. It summarizes everything that we are saying just now. First, they can learn at least 8 things: color recognition, fine motor skills, eye-hand coordination, concentration, rules of the game, social skills, observation. They observe what others are doing. And then, of course, they are not alone. They have to control their emotion. These are the things that, the kids naturally learn in the process of play. When we are talking about play, in fact, we are more talking about to the parents and the teacher, because child naturally enjoy play. So that's why I heard that, it's after 6 months, they come back to Dr. Andrew's school. So, still play? Of course, because play is for them to learn. So, in fact, the question that I've been given is how I can design, because I'm a toy designer and I've been, in the industry for Tamaras. You have been there for 1 decade, me 3 decades, and I love kids. We have to have young at heart, a children's heart to be in the toy business. And we design toy with a purpose. Our slogan is not just a toy. Basically, it's very lucky that, the child expert summarized 0 to 6 child development into the milestones. And we developed toys based on the milestones. And in 3 areas, which all mentioned by just now by all the speakers. So I want to go into some of the areas that how we make the toys. For example, this is a toy that, for physical development, of course, physical is for the baby. They have their seeing, hearing, touching, feeling, and also, the gross and fine motor skills. And when they play, they will not notice that by doing this action, they already learn their fine motor skills and gross motor skills. These are the index fingers where they learn how to write, use the fine motors to write. There are also, we work with occupation therapists on some of the autistic kids where they cannot speak very well, or they cannot concentrate, or even some of the pens that they cannot manipulate in writing. Then a toy can help them, like this kind of toy. When you press this, it also runs, and then they keep on during the therapist section. They keep on half an hour enjoying this playing without even knowing that they are being, under a therapy session. So all these are toys, and all these are helping them. So this is how we develop toy. And secondly, of course, the physical is one part, and the other part is social. Okay, let's come to the cognitive part first, because cognitive is something that all the parents like. A fresh card in Singapore, they give fresh card to the kid 6 months old, and then, they have all kind of learning thing for them. Of course, toys designed for learning, they are good, but not only cognitive. So we have to have physical, cognitive, and social. Social, just now, I understand that the mention is now because children are more, they like digital media. They like to be, at home by themselves. There are different terms, saying that they have a high IQ but very low EQ, because they don't know how to interact with people. So basically, role play toy, Lego toy, a lot of toys that really we need to give them a chance to play, that just in the picture before, that they need to share emotions and also share cooperations, understand the rule of games. So all these are the 3 criteria of how I developed the toys. And now we are making, in fact, 8 years ago, we are working with educators, toy experts to make toys for autistic kids. The second category that, I think, we design toy with a purpose. We design also toy that is fun to play with. I understand your educators, that, autistic kids or ADHD, especially ADHD kids, the relationship to gravity, they do not understand very well. That's why they jump and run everywhere. You give them a very heavy school bag, they are quiet. Parents don't understand, but this heavy thing make them understand their existence. So in some therapist section, they will do vest with very heavy metal there, and they run away with it because they are afraid. Oh, what is this? But we design with them some sort of toys like this pail with them, also with weight inside, so that when they do homework or go to the therapy session, they really enjoy. There's one time a kid that's ADHD can only spend 10 minutes quiet, but after putting on this, can spend 50 minutes quiet time. So I would say, if we give them something that they like, it's much better than give them some equipment or things that they don't understand. So toy, we design toy with a very lovable and funny and way that the children likes it. So I hope, and I'm very happy to hear that, India now is going to really treasure this play and game pedagogy in children. And I am very honored, and I think, the teaching of teachers is very important, and I echo very much Dr. Angie said that the teacher has to understand, how to create toy, how to love toy, and then also learn to become the learner. And also we toy people understand that there are toy safety regulations, that you cannot do toys or learning teaching aids outside these safety regulations, and which are very important. That's why this is also a subject that we are teaching now in the university, so that the future teacher, they know how to make good toys and good learning training kits for their children. And thank you very much. Thanks for the time. And I hope, we can have the time to share again in the future.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Karen, for this interesting presentation. And we now move to Mr. Harsat Pisa and would request him to share his thoughts on this very important topic of panel discussion.
Shiksha, education, is a very important aspect for anybody in life. और जो भी व्यक्ति शिक्षा से सज्ज है, वह विकास अवश्य कर सकता है। मगर बचपन में बालक को जो टॉयज का जो रोल है, खिलौनों का जो रोल है, खिलौनों की जो भूमिका है, वो बड़ी महत्वपूर्ण है, अहम भूमिका है, क्योंकि खिलौनों के माध्यम से शिक्षा भी मिलती है और आनंद भी मिलता है। बड़ी अर्थपूर्ण ये प्रक्रिया है, क्योंकि खिलौने जो है वो लर्निंग का एटीट्यूड एंड एप्टीट्यूड दोनों का विकास करती है। चिल्ड्रन प्ले टू मेक सेंस ऑफ द वर्ल्ड अराउंड देम एंड टू फाइंड मीनिंग इन एन एक्सपीरियंस बाय कनेक्टिंग इट टू समथिंग ऑलरेडी नोन। जो बच्चा जानता है उसका अनुकरण भी करता है खिलौनों के माध्यम से। Through play, children express and expand their understanding of their experiences. मतलब ये एक अर्थपूर्ण प्रक्रिया है। खिलौनों से खेलना बच्चे के लिए आनंदमूलक है, शिक्षात्मक है, और ये बड़ी जॉयफुल प्रक्रिया है, न केवल बच्चों के लिए बल्कि बड़ों के लिए भी। जब बड़े बच्चों के साथ खेलते हैं तो बच्चे की तरह छोटे बन जाते हैं और उसमें तन्मय हो जाते हैं। तो ये learning through toys is a very important aspect which has been floated by our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Bhai. And in each and every science fair which is going to be conducted for forthcoming 2 years, he has advised the theme that learning through toys should be in center. तो लर्निंग थ्रू टॉयज मैथमेटिक्स तो सीख सकते हैं, विज्ञान सीख सकते हैं, खगोल सीख सकते हैं, नवोदर्शन उससे बहुत बढ़िया हो सकता है। हमारे जीवन मूल्यों को भी हम समझ सकते हैं, हमारी संस्कृति को, हमारे इतिहास को हम समझ सकते हैं। और इतना सारा सीखने में कोई भार नहीं लगता, कोई उसमें जोर नहीं लगता, कोई परेशानी नहीं होती, सहज रूप से बच्चा सीख सकता है और संस्कृति से इतना जुड़ जाता है। हम मानो योग सिखाना है तो खिलौनों के माध्यम से योग की मुद्राएं भी बता सकते हैं। खिलौनों के माध्यम से हम जो हमारे विविध प्रकार के खेल हैं, वो खेल को भी हम प्रशस्त कर सकते हैं। उसमें खिलौना खेलना भी आवश्यक है, खिलौने से खेलना भी आवश्यक है और खिलौने बनाना भी आवश्यक है। बच्चा खिलौने बनाना भी जानता है, तोड़ना भी जानता है और जोड़ना भी जानता है। ये सब प्रक्रिया जो है ये बच्चों को यदि हम एक अच्छा मौका दें, अच्छा अवसर दें, तो उनका कौशल्य भी विकसित होता है, उनकी स्किल भी बढ़ती है, स्किल एट लार्ज स्केल। अब जैसे हमारे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जो कहा है कि फिट इंडिया मूवमेंट है, तो फिट इंडिया मूवमेंट को कैसे उजागर करना, कैसे हाईलाइट करना खिलौनों के माध्यम से, वैसे ही उनका एक बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण सूत्र है, एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत। हमारा भारत तो वैविध्यपूर्ण प्रक्रियाओं का देश है, विविध खान पान है, रहन सहन है, भाषा है, भूषा है, और इन सबके बीच में जब ये खिलौने हमारे ये अच्छा रोल अदा कर सकता है, क्योंकि देश भर के विविध राज्यों में, अनेक विविध राज्यों में जो भी उनका रहन सहन है, पहनावा है, उसको खिलौनों के माध्यम से हम प्रदर्शित कर सकते हैं और विविधता में एकता भी हम ला सकते हैं। जीवन में सवेरे से शाम तक हम कई लोगों के संपर्क में आते हैं, जैसे अखबार वाला है, दूध वाला है, फिर हमारा किसान होता है, हमारे सफाई कामदार होते हैं। इन सबको कैसे हम खिलौनों के माध्यम से उन बच्चों को बताएं कि ये सब हमारे लिए, हमारे जीवन में उपयोगी हैं, और ये जो है सब हमारे जीवन में सामाजिक समरसता के लिए भी ये खिलौने प्रदान कर सकते हैं और बड़ा अच्छा रोल उनका रह सकता है। बच्चों को यदि एकाग्रता बढ़ाने के लिए कुछ करना है तो वो खिलौनों से खेले और उसमें हो जाए। तो खेले बच्चा, खेले बालक, खेले भारत, और खिले भी भारत। हम खेल से, बच्चों से हम भारत को भी एक देशव्यापी एक आनंदमूलक प्रक्रिया कर सकते हैं। प्रत्येक परिवार को खिलौनों की आवश्यकता रहती है, और प्रत्येक घर में खिलौना जो है वो एक शिक्षा का बड़ा प्रबल और सबल माध्यम बन सकता है। इसके लिए यदि हम हमारे बच्चों के लिए बड़े अच्छे और टेक्नोलॉजी से युक्त परंपरागत जो है, ट्रेडिशनल जो है, उसको आधुनिक स्वरूप देकर यदि हम अच्छे खिलौने बनाए, उसमें कई सिद्धांतों का आविष्कार करके विज्ञान, गणित जैसे कई विषय उसमें हम सिखा सकते हैं। और ये पेडागोजी का जो ये विषय है, उसमें हम काफी संशोधन कर सकते हैं। आंगनवाड़ी के लिए भी, और जो 3 to 5 NEP 2020 में जो बताया गया है, ये आंगनवाड़ी के लिए भी एक बड़ा उपयुक्त माध्यम होगा यदि इसे ठीक से बढ़ावा दिया जाए, ठीक से संशोधन के क्षेत्र में उसको प्रोत्साहित किया जाए, तो हम हमारे देश में खिलौना के क्षेत्र में अच्छी क्रांति कर सकते हैं। मुझे लगता है कि बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण विषय है और हम इसे अपनाएं, दिल से अपनाएं, प्रेम से अपनाएं। धन्यवाद।
Toys are very interesting medium for children to quench their thirst for inquiry and their thirst for learning and their thirst for exploration and all these things. And as Karen just mentioned, that there are certain toys which are meeting the purpose of many different kind of children also. So that's a very interesting presentation, Karen. So with these nice panel discussion, I think I take permission of you all and the organizers to sum up the session here as a moderator. And with this, I again thank you all for very nice discussions and expressions ranging from different experiences and fields of expertise. Thank you all. Namaskar from India.